delighted to be joined now live by Lord Dodds, who is the leader of the Democratic Unionist Party in the House of Lords. Welcome to you. In a nutshell, Dougie Beattie explained why the parties in Stormont couldn't agree on a speaker and couldn't agree on power sharing. But if the downside of that is fresh elections, isn't your party going to risk giving up yet more ground to Sinn Féin and to the Nationalists?
No, I mean, we don't seek this election, but we don't fear any election. And I think that the Democratic Unionist Party will actually do quite well because we have the support of unionists across the board. It's not just the DUP, by the way, that opposed the protocol in Northern Ireland. It's every single unionist elected to the Assembly. And unfortunately, a poll now will be divisive. It will be polarising. Not a single party in Northern Ireland seeks it. But the government seems intent on having it. And if it does go ahead, then we will fight it vigorously because we are determined that the protocol should be replaced because it undermines the Belfast Agreement. It undermines devolution. It drives a coach and horses through democracy in Northern Ireland, whereby laws are being imposed by the European Union without any say for anyone at Westminster or Stormont. So the government really needs to get on with dealing with the protocol. It has started the progress of the protocol bill in Parliament, and it has actually wasted a lot of time thus far. July last year, it told us that the conditions were right then for the triggering of Article 16, which would have suspended part of the operation of the protocol, but nothing has happened since. So, we're ready for an election. We're confident that we will do well. But the real imperative is to replace the protocol because whatever the outcome of the election, the same problems will remain.
Crisply put, and I completely understand that. I have one slight problem with the analysis, and that is, the European Union, and it wouldn't it, obviously, claim that the protocol is working just fine. The government in Dublin says the protocol is working just fine. But here's the problem for you. When I've spoken to business leaders in Northern Ireland, which I often do at the weekend, not least the Federation of Small Businesses in Northern Ireland, very articulate men and women, they say, they can live with it. What they can't live without is some form of government that's sorting out the health service, sorting out energy crises and the rest of it. You owe them a form of government.
Yes, and we're keen to get into government, but the protocol is undermining the Belfast Agreement and the institutions of the agreement, which is unacceptable. Northern Ireland now works by the consent of both nationalists and unionists. There's not a single unionist elected to the Northern Ireland Assembly that supports the protocol. And you say that the protocol is working well, or the Irish say it's working well, and others. 80% of it isn't actually being implemented at the minute. If it were, business people in Northern Ireland have given evidence to the Northern Ireland Select Committee on the protocol that, in fact, supply chains to Northern Ireland would grind to a halt within 48 hours. So I dispute entirely this idea that business doesn't have any problems with the protocol. It does, and it's on record as saying that. And in fact, the government is spending billions, £500 million will do by the end of this year, on trader support schemes, movement assistance schemes, money being spent by taxpayers to prop up a system of paperwork being required to move goods from Great Britain into Northern Ireland through our own country, which is entirely unnecessary. Imposed costs on business imposed by the protocol. Never mind the democratic deficit, which means that people elected to this Northern Ireland Assembly do not have any say over large swathes of the law on the economy. So both from a constitutional and political point of view and an economic point of view and a business point of view, the protocol has to go. Now, the government has recognised that. It has set out in its command paper last year that it recognises the issues. The protocol bill that is brought forward recognises those fundamental issues. So we want government in Northern Ireland, but you can't have government in Northern Ireland operating under the Belfast Agreement when that agreement has had a coach and horses drawn through it by the protocol. That has to be dealt with. The government has known that for a long time, and unfortunately problems at Westminster, the chaos at Westminster, EU intransigence has led to the position that we now find ourselves in. but so be it. But I would say this to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland and to those who are keen to have an election in Northern Ireland. The same problems will remain after we have this election. And if you're so keen on an election, why is it that you so much resist an election for the United Kingdom? There would actually be a bigger argument for that.
You were always a brilliant sparring partner, and a nice one to pop in there. We also know, and you know better than I, but anybody watching this story knows very well, that Liz Truss, both as Foreign Secretary and briefly as Prime Minister, her fingerprints were all over what you've just described about the UK government's intention to play hardball over this issue. Do you get the same sense of confidence from Rishi Sunak?
Well, it remains to be seen. During the leadership campaign, he did say that he was committed to the protocol bill. There's been reports that during the most recent campaign for the leadership that he met senior Conservatives who are concerned about the protocol and gave them reassurances. But look, we have to wait and see. We have over the years learned to judge Conservative and other governments by their actions, not necessarily their promises. We remember a previous Prime Minister telling us that there would be no border down the Irish Sea and that any paperwork could be chucked in the bin. Of course, that turned out to be wrong. So we will wait and see. I wish any discussions well, but they do have to deliver the sort of outcomes that are in the protocol bill. Liz Truss made that clear. The government, in proposing the legislation in Parliament, made that clear. And we hope that that will be the outcome. And if so, then we can make progress, because on that basis, Northern Ireland can continue to trade openly as an integral part of the United Kingdom internal market. That's where the vast bulk of our trade is done with, not with the European Union, the rest of the world or anything else. It's mainly with the rest of Great Britain, and to put barriers and to remove our ability to make our own laws through the protocol is an absolute travesty, and that has to be dealt with.